All right, guys. I did a bit of a experiment here. Bear with me. Disclaimer, I understand that the process that I'm about to show you isn't exactly scientific, and I don't want, people to get up in arms about, the methodology or how, I just want you to bear with me. This is sort of a thought experiment, and I think it's an interesting one at that. So there's been a lot of discussion about this election. And there's been a lot of discussion about polls. We can't trust the polls. The polls were off in 2016 and they were off by even more in 2020. So they were showing Hillary Clinton was going to win, and then she ended up losing. And then they were showing Biden was going to win in a landslide. He ends up barely winning against Trump in 2020. And a lot of that is because there was this shift both in 2016 and 2020 in a number of states, not every state, but in a number of states, there was a notable shift in Trump's direction on election day, anywhere from 2% to in some cases 7%. These major shifts that actually in really just three states ended up giving Donald Trump the election, right? Clinton was winning in the polls in Pennsylvania, winning in Michigan, and winning in Wisconsin. And on election day, she ends up losing all three. Famously, the blue wall collapses and Donald Trump wins essentially in a landslide, right? Um, so we're getting all these polls out now with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, and in a lot of them, she is leading, or it's close, or it's tied, right? In some ways, you can interpret it as her winning because she is polling ahead in some of those states. But people keep saying, well, what about this shift that keeps happening on election day for Trump whenever it seems like he is on the ballot? So, what I did, sorry, hopefully you're still with me after that long preamble, but I went ahead and I actually calculated. I basically said, okay, well, what exactly was the shift in those essential states on election day? And I did that for 2016, and then I did that again for 2020 versus Joe Biden. And I applied those shifts to our current polls. Again, we're still 40 days out from election day. This is what we're looking at right now to see what would the result be like if we got a similar shift in this election. So that's essentially what I did, and the results are pretty fascinating. Again, I understand this is not a particularly scientific way to go about it, but this is just what I felt I wanted to do. And I'll have more versions of this to sort of show you how different shifts can really come out with different outcomes because this race is really close. So Pennsylvania, we had a 2.8% shift for Trump on election day. Michigan, it was 3.7, 3.9 towards Trump. In Wisconsin, it was 7.2. I also added in a couple more states here. Nevada actually was the opposite story. So not every state was a Trump shift. We actually had 3.2% in Clinton's direction. And then in Georgia, those polls were fairly accurate. And there you have that. Okay. In 2020, in Pennsylvania, the polling was actually spot on. I mean, again, I'm actually using Real Clear Politics for this one. I just wanted to stick with that so we had at least some consistency, the Real Clear Politics polling. So Biden versus Trump in Pennsylvania, those polls were spot on accurate on election day. There was no difference in the polling and the results. In Michigan, there was a 1.4% shift towards Trump. And then in Wisconsin, again, this is why I keep saying that, of all the states, I think Wisconsin is going to go back to Trump because there was a 6 point swing on election day. Biden was pulling ahead by almost 7 points, barely won. Nevada, there was no shift. So Nevada and Pennsylvania, interestingly, were spot on accurate with their polling. And then finally, Georgia famously shifted in Biden's direction, giving him a slight win. Okay. Between 2016 and 2020, I went ahead and averaged it out. So for example, in Pennsylvania, a minus 2.8 in Trump's direction, and then a 0%, or then a zero shift in with nothing in 2020, that averaged out to a 1.4% shift in Trump's direction. I averaged it out for Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia. I didn't have Arizona and North Carolina up there on the charts here, but I did the same exact methodology for that one, and the result there was a shift of 0.05. Again, those polls were very accurate in Arizona, and then in North Carolina, we're having a shift of about 2% in Trump's direction. Now, I took these numbers, again, these final numbers here, and I applied those to each of the states that we have now. This is the up-to-date polling, September 26th. In the top battleground states, same states we just looked at, we apply those shifts to those numbers. If you look at this, or if we take these numbers at face value, you have technically a Harris victory. She's winning 4 out of the 7 swing states, and that is all you need in order to win this election. So we go ahead and apply our data. Arizona, we shift 0.05 in Trump's direction. He's already winning, so he goes ahead and wins that. Nevada, we add 1.6% to Harris's 0.4, and she is still winning. Okay. Wisconsin, we shift it minus 6.6. That brings it from 0.7 to somewhere in positive Trump +5 territory. That is an easy win for Trump. Michigan, where Harris is up by 1.8, the minus 2.6 shift blows out that lead. Pennsylvania, we shift that minus 1.4. Harris is only up by 0.8. That shifts it into Trump's direction. North Carolina, we go ahead and do the same thing. Trump's already winning. He will hold on to that. And in Georgia, the 0.5% shift where Trump is currently polling at plus 2.2 is not enough to cut into that lead, and Trump holds on to Georgia. What does that mean? Out of the 7 swing states, when you go ahead and look at it, you run the table. Harris holds on to Nevada. She loses Arizona. She loses Georgia, shifts back, not enough of a shift there, loses North Carolina. Pennsylvania shifts red. Michigan shifts red. Wisconsin shifts red. And we have Trump winning with 306 electoral votes to 232 for Kamala Harris. If we get a shift along the averages that we've seen in the last 2 elections in the direction of Trump on election day, with the current polling, we end up with the result where Donald Trump wins in something of a landslide, something like a landslide that we saw against Hillary Clinton all those years ago, and we have 4 more years of Donald Trump. Again, this is just one model, and there have been massive changes since 2016 and 2020 that need to be accounted for. We will go ahead and look at those in a future video. But again, just to reiterate, these are shifts that have happened in reality. These are trends that we've seen in certain states. And it's something to take into account, I think. So Trump very much still alive in this election, and it is going to be it's going to be a barn burner down to the end here. So thank you for watching. Let me know what you guys think of the methodology here. Drop a like and a comment, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.